Hey guys, Dusty with Blueyes Below, and today we're going to talk about a year-end review from 2021. There's a lot of things that's happened, so I wrote a list and we can kind of go through all the exciting things that have happened in Great Lakes exploration this year. So we started off in January, right off the bat. I spent New Year's and the couple of days after traveling around Michigan. I started in Muskegon. I had bought a new drone, a DJI Mavic Pro 2, and started filming lighthouses all the way up the coast. From Muskegon all the way up to the bridge and then a little bit down. I think I ended in Shipwreck. And then I took my camper van down south in February. I ended up in Georgia at the aquarium and got to go scuba diving with whale sharks, which was really fantastic. I think in early March maybe, I went out in Traverse City a couple times and I relocated the Lauren Castle, that tugboat that sank in 1980. That one's around 400 feet deep, and then I was able to film it also with the ROV. So that one had been found before, but the coordinates were not publicly known or shared for some reason. So that was really exciting. I did an interview with my buddy Thomas Slager from Canada. He actually used to live over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But he did an interview on me that turned out really, really well, kind of about what I do, and he shared that on his site. Candid Badger is his website. Then I built a new ROV light setup with my friends Mark and Joe. They helped me kind of set that up because they have a setup for their ROV as well. So we got these this 4-foot light bar that's extended out to the side of the ROV with two I think like 8,000 lumen lights. So that adds an additional 16,000 lumens down at depth when it's really dark. So that was pretty key for the Lauren Castle. So that was a very big help. And then I went out, I think late March maybe, with my mentor, Mark, and we filmed the Jarvis Shipwreck. That one's about 215 feet deep over in the Manitou Passage. Ross Richardson had found that last year or the year before, I believe. And then we also relocated the W.C. Kimball, which is the world's most intact schooner, is what they say. So that one is also up in the Manitou Passage area, sitting around 300 feet deep. Ross Richardson had also found that one. So we relocated it because the coordinates weren't publicly shared, and I filmed it really, really well. So check out the YouTube video if you missed that. Also the Jarvis Lord and the Lauren Castle. I put together nice videos from all of that. I started a Patreon, which is very helpful for those who want to get in on the journey. Not everyone's a diver, not everyone is an explorer, so you can kind of follow along in the process and also be part of it by contributing a little bit financially. And that's a little bit of give back to me. It costs a tremendous amount of money to do this, but it's what I love to do. So whether or not I ever make money in it doesn't really matter, but it all helps, and I'm very thankful for all that do support me on this journey, because ultimately the public wins when new discoveries are made and it's brought forth to the public to experience. Like I said, not everyone's a diver, so if this isn't done, a lot of people will never get to experience this stuff if not for people like me and others that do the exploration. One of my good friends, Bernie Hellstrom, we went and did a bucket list dive that he wanted to do. We went up in northern Michigan and dove a sinkhole. He had always been curious about what's down there, so again we did a nice YouTube video on the sinkhole exploration, so that was fun. I had an issue with my big boat that I use, my Osprey Expedition, had a fuel pump issue, and that was troubling me for quite some time. I actually had to be towed off the lake by a friend of mine, John Hansen, who's the president of the West Michigan Underwater Preserve here. The fuel pump itself was not bad. It was the electrical contact of two connectors that somehow just got corroded or broken or something. So it would work most of the time, but then it would cut out or whatever. So I replaced the pump, which was like $1,400. Thankfully, it was covered under warranty, and that fixed it initially. I think just because I replugged in the connectors and they made good contact. But going through the waves, the jarring, it causes things to move. So it cut out on me a few times, once at the Fox Islands actually. Thankfully I made it back, but we found that connector was bad. I replaced it. I've not had any issues since. So that was a huge accomplishment to get that sorted. I bought a new radar for the big boat because the other one died. I think it got wet or something. So now I have a nice new radar for fog, for nighttime. I did some exploration out by the Manitou Islands. I left at like 5 a.m. so it was dark as night. I needed the radar for safety. Also got survival gear when I'm out there searching for the gilcher or whatever else. When I'm far offshore, if anything happens on the boat and I have to leave, I have a survival suit if I have to get in the water if the dinghy's not available. So I looked for the WH Gilcher. That is currently the largest missing shipwreck in Lake Michigan, out somewhere by the Manitou and Fox Islands. I went out twice this year, actually, the early spring, to look for it, and it is a very, very long ways out there. So it's a huge search area. It's just going to take a team effort or a lot of time and money to do it. But hopefully that is found in the next few years, along with a few others. I bought my National Park Service boat from New Era, Michigan. I was actually up there working. We had some power lines down, and I went to this guy's house to check to make sure all of his wires were up. And I seen this boat sitting there out in the field in the weeds and stuff, and I asked him about it. And long story short, we ended up striking a deal, and I brought it home for $500. Now I've got a lot more into that now, but it's been a really great boat, and it's actually my favorite boat. It runs so well and is so comfortable for working and diving, so I'm glad I found that one. I worked with a couple friends of mine, Mark Gamage and Joe Van Wagenen, up in Lake Huron this year as well. That was really fun. So Mark and Joe go all over the Great Lakes, and they look for shipwrecks as well. I think Mark is retired. Joe is getting close to being retired, but they got really nice boats and some really nice equipment and an ROV as well. So they found the Propeller Challenge this year in about, I think, 5 hours. On their first day out, they found it, which had been located previously. We found out about a month ago when they went public with it. And then they also found the Augustus P. Handy the year prior. So I was actually able to be the first diver on the Handy this year, which was a really nice opportunity. So I dove on that, checked things out. They had their ROV down there with me, and it was really fun to explore that way, man and machine. So hopefully a lot more of that will come in the future. But also we did the dual ROVs on that Propeller Challenge. And that gives them some really cool footage of me following them, exploring the shipwreck. I can get that third-person view. So that's fun doing it that way. I worked with Kevin Dykstra. Now, Kevin is a really good friend of mine. He lives here in Muskegon, and he's been a great help to me as far as mentorship, friendship, and he's really good at fabrication. So that's how the swim platform got on the National Park Service boat, and that's how the dive ladder got on there, and also the iPilot positioning system on the bow. We had to really reinforce the bow of that, and that's all because of Kevin. He's got the knowledge and the equipment and the skill to do that. So a friend of mine, Tom Hadfield, he did the research on the Elva shipwreck that was up by Mackinac Island. Now that was lost around the time that they were building the Mackinac Bridge, and it wasn't lost. It was burned in celebration of building the bridge. I think it was an old ship that they wanted to get rid of, but Tom did the research, and Bernie Hellstrom and I went out there with him. We used my boat and sonar, and we found it pretty quickly, actually. So I was able to be the first diver on that and go take some cool photos of it. We had great conditions once I got down there at depth. All right, and so then I went up to the Upper Peninsula, went up to Munising, and worked with a couple photographers, Shelley and Mary Beth. They do amazing photographs, astrophotography in iconic places. So we went out and did some really cool photographs that just have never been seen with the Milky Way, just completely jaw-dropping when you see it. So that was really fun. We were out on Lake Superior at night, black as night, doing photography. And so my parents actually had photos printed for me for Jamesport Brewery in Ludington. So if you're ever in there and you see some Shipwreck photos, that's my photographs, but my parents did that as a gift to me. There's some really big prints in there. One is Sandusky, and I think the one up in the Manitou Island, Francisco Morazan, is up there, and maybe a couple more. But that was really cool and a nice gift from them. So we went to Ohio and I bought a new van. I got rid of my other camper van. It just wasn't big enough for towing the boats and all the equipment. So I got a four-wheel drive E350, which is certainly big enough, but now the fuel mileage is horrible. However, I do have towing capacity, so you pick one. So now I'm able to tow the boats at least a lot better and safer with a properly rated van with all the gear in it. So that's nice. My Gordon Ramsay episode came out on Uncharted. That was in July. I had actually filmed the year prior, but with all the editing and everything, scheduling, it took quite a while, almost a year for it to come out. So that was really excited. And that actually aired last night again as well. So December 25th, Christmas, it aired. I went up to Detour, Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan on the east side, and filmed a bunch of freighters and filmed some of the shipwrecks in the area with the drone. That was a lot of fun. We took the van over to Drummond Island there and toured around. We went off-roading accidentally with it, which wasn't the most fun. You probably could not pay me to ever bring the van over there. It was just so rough and rocky, but very beautiful. I also filmed the Uganda in the Straits of Mackinac. That one's about 210 feet deep, I think. It's quite a ways out there from where I normally am. I had tried filming it before with the ROV, but I had an issue. It was completely clear that day, and you had a lot of visibility, and then a malfunction with the ROV, so I brought it up. Well, on the YouTube video I ended up making of the Uganda, it's actually very, very dark. And I think that's just because it's late season. It's deep. So I was able to tour the entire ship. That was a lot of fun and a bucket list item for me. But I do want to go back when it's clearer and hopefully see more details. Ken Merriman relocated a shipwreck in the Straits of Mackinac called the Dolphin. Now that was apparently found before due to a watch being left on the steering wheel to say that someone was there before. But that one's in about 110 or so feet of water, very intact for what it is. So that was a really cool dive to go see that. Then Trin and I went up to the UP all the way to Copper Harbor. Now, in all the years I've lived in Michigan, I've never gone up there just because I think it took 11 hours to drive from Muskegon, driving the van all the way up there at like 65 miles an hour. So that was pretty incredible to spend a few days up there just touring around, searching for Uper lights, taking photos, flying the drone. And when we were up there, it was the peak fall colors. So we got to tour the mines, a couple mines up there as well. Very cool adventure. I cannot wait to go back. I hung out with my friend Bernie Hellstrom. He's got a one-man submarine that he has been rebuilding and kind of refitting that he bought last year. So we actually took it out in Boyne City, where he lives, in the lake there, and I got to film and photograph Bernie in his sub when he did his first open water dive on it. So that was just truly an incredible experience to see this submarine coming over the ledge and just hovering over you and maneuvering. I mean, just straight out of a movie. It was so cool. And then I think in November, I had a presentation in Ohio at the Shipwrecks and Scuba event. So that was a really cool event that had been shut down just because of COVID. But I went to it a few years ago, and that's where I actually got interested in getting a rebreather, the Meg. So that's where the rebreather journey started, was at the Shipwrecks and Scuba in Sandusky, Ohio, at the Kalahari Resort. So they actually invited me. They've seen my work and stuff, and they were really excited to have me. So that turned out really good. And after that presentation, a really nice news article came out about, what I'm doing. So if you haven't seen that, hopefully you can catch the link on my page, because it's a great article. Then I went to Port Washington, Wisconsin recently to go film the Pierre Marquette 18. Now, the Pierre Marquette 18 is a really big car ferry that was the largest missing shipwreck in Lake Michigan until Ken Merriman and Jerry Eliason found it a couple years ago. So I spoke with Ken a little bit, and he agreed to give me the coordinates to go film it. So I took the long trip all the way around Lake Michigan up to Port Washington. I towed my Park Service boat up there, and I think it was 620 miles or something round trip with the van at 8 miles a gallon. And then about 21 miles out in the boat each way, in like 500 feet of water. So I get out there. It was quite the trip out there, just because of the weather changed a bit. So once I got out there, I did find the shipwreck. I hovered directly over it, and I'm battling about 3 to 5 foot waves. However, I am holding position. I decided to send the ROV down because it was an awful long trip to get out there. Unfortunately, on the way down, the ROV drifted off, and I was never able to see the shipwreck, even though I was still hovering directly over it with the iPilot, and I could see it on sonar. Just the waves and the wind were just so much that the ROV drifted one way or another. And without a sonar on the ROV, I couldn't tell. I could have been 10 feet, 15 feet from it, and I would have never known. It's just so pitch black down there with my lights. You can see maybe 10 feet or so just into the empty bottom. I could have been right next to it, and I never would have known. So I drove around, for almost an hour trying to find it to film it, and I never did. Now, it is speared into the bottom at about a 30-degree angle like this. So, I could have been under the bow like this and never would have saw it until I hit the stern. So that's a bummer. Hopefully I can get back out there next year with much better conditions, and I'll probably do a drop line off of the boat, which, it's 500 feet of rope with an anchor, but then I could follow that down and know I'm not drifting on the way down, and then film the shipwreck. You do have the down line to, worry about getting tangled in, but it's either that or not seeing it at all. So it's a big expense for not being successful, but it happens. So those news articles came out from the presentation. That was pretty exciting. It was a little shocking to see the headline on it. So again, if you haven't seen it, check that out. It's a nice article. And then last but not least, and I'm sure I'm missing some things, but I recently went through the course to get my captain's license. That was very, very challenging. I took 7 or 8 days off of work, took vacation, went up to Ludington, and went through the class. Now, it's something that I had wanted to do for quite some time, and I just happened to Google captain's course or whatever, and it said there's one starting in 4 days. So I was like, holy cow. You know, things happen fast. So I got signed up. I was one of the last people to take the slot because they fill up pretty quick. And I spent a full week in class learning how to be a captain. And it is definitely very intense and a lot harder than what I imagined. So it's a very serious thing to be a captain on the Great Lakes and to have people on your boat that you're in charge of keeping safe. So hopefully some select few charters coming up this next year. It's going to cost a lot to have insurance and get the boats all ready to be Coast Guard inspected. But I think it would be a lot of fun to take people out to the places that I go regularly, like the Manitou Islands or the Fox Islands. We could go snorkeling on shallow shipwrecks. You could tour the islands. We could take tech divers out on deeper shipwrecks that are seldom dove just because of where they are. So more to come on that. So overall, 2021 was really good. There was a lot of new, exciting experiences, like being on national TV with Gordon Ramsay. You know, that's a pretty. We'll pin that one at the top. But also hanging out with my buddy Bernie and diving with his submarine. I mean, that was just cool as can be. Diving with an ROV or dual ROVs. So lots of exciting things happening as always. I just want to keep bringing this stuff to the public and the people that love this and want to learn and live vicariously through me if they're not a diver. So let's hope 2022 is equally as good or better. So I thank you all for your support, and we'll catch you on the next one. Happy holidays.